Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our third quarter safety work group meeting. As you might have heard or seen on your screen, we're recording this meeting and it'll be posted on the website, hopefully by the end of the week. My name is Anna Holder. My pronouns are she, her, and I am your STU co-chair along with Jay Davis, who's here as well. Do you want to advance the slide for me, Jay, please? So as you'll hear later, last week I was at the US EPA Tribal Conference, and it really kind of drove home the need for us to continue having land acknowledgements at the beginning of our meetings and then following those acknowledgements with action. Many of you have heard these words before, but I'm going to say them again as a refresher and invite you to think about the lands you're on, wherever you are. So before we dive in to our agenda, I want to express gratitude for the land we're on, and all the tribal lands in California, and note that the Cal EPA building and the hub of this work group is located in a place that we now call Sacramento, California, which was and still is a gathering place for many local tribes who have lived throughout the Central Valley and foothills since time immemorial, that is, time before time, and are the original stewards of these lands and waters. These people include the Nishinan, Maidu, and Miwok peoples, and the Patwin and Wintun nations. And it's important for us to recognize that our organization sits on the tribal lands of Indigenous peoples, and that we are here because of the sacrifices that have been forced upon them. I don't say these words to bum people out. It's acknowledging the truth of our collective history. And the purpose for me is in acknowledging and remembering these communities in all of the work we do and all of the decisions that we make and how we work together and partner with each other and bring in more partners, including tribal government partners, as we move forward. I hope that we honor their legacies, their lives, and their descendants. Thanks. Okay, I think with that, I will keep admitting people, Jay, and pass the baton to you for a roll call.
Great, we've got good turnout today. So we'll go through our normal roll call. I'll read off the groups, and then folks who belong to that group can announce yourself. So yeah, I'm Jay Davis, the co-chair of the STU. So let's start with the review panel.
Harry Oldendorf here.
We muted folks in the beginning as you joined, so you might need to unmute yourself.
Let's test your audio, Chris.
I did that once. Hi, I'm Chris Smith. I'm one of the review panel members.
Great. Great to have you guys here. We didn't hear you the first time.
That's because somebody muted me.
Okay. Don't take it personally.
Never.
Do we have a representative from EPA? Oweha?
Hey everyone, Wes Smith.
Hi, Lauren Chemney.
Tran Pham.
Great. Moss Landing.
Autumn Banema.
Scott Lucas.
All right, let's go through the regions. Region 1.
Yeah, Rich Fadness, Region 1.
Mike Thomas, Region 1.
Want to take a minute to acknowledge Rich. I understand you're retiring fairly soon. I don't know if this will be your last STU meeting, but Rich is one of the long-term STU members, STU/BOG members. It's been great working with Rich over the years. Is this your last STU meeting, Rich?
I think it is. December 30th is my last day on the payroll. So thank you, Jay.
Right.
It's been a pleasure.
All right. Congrats. Okay, Region 2.
Good morning, everyone. Gerardo Martinez, Region 2.
Region 3.
Melissa Doherty, Region 3.
Your audio is a little low.
Melissa Doherty. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
that was a little better.
Okay, Region 3.
Region 4. Region 5.
Hi, Heather Stablin with Region 5.
Cecile Mioni, Region 5.
Region 6.
Hi, Lori Screeb with Region 6.
Region 7. Do we have a Region 7? Region 8.
Heather
Jason,
Boyd.
Oop,
Jason Freshwater, Region 8.
we heard Heather too. Great. Region 9.
Chad Laughlin.
And Carrie Kowalski.
Great. Okay, moving on to the state board.
Everyone usually pauses, so I'm going to help out here. Any OEMans in the house?
Jennifer Salisbury.
Tessa's here. Tessa Foget.
Andrew Hamilton.
Is that everybody from the state board?
I think so. Any other divisions or offices that I may have missed? I haven't said anything. I think that's everyone. Okay.
Okay, monitoring council. Do we have Nick today? Okay, do we have any tribal representatives? All right, and if you're not in one of those groups, please add your name and affiliation into the chat. And it's also nice if that's added to your name that shows up in the Zoom participant list. All right, we've got a good group today. Let's review the agenda. So we'll start with our usual round of short updates. And then now that the fish collection for the year is completed, Autumn's gonna give a presentation on the sampling and how that went and where we are with the analysis. Then I'm going to give an update on the final long-term monitoring plan that we've been talking about for a long time. A draft write-up is coming soon, very soon. It's drafted. It'll be coming your way soon. I'll say more about that. And we'll take that. That'll be a relatively long item, 30 minutes, where we'll review the sort of options that I've laid out in the written plan. Then we'll take a short break, and then I'll talk in detail about the plan for 2025 and 26. And I'll be asking for input from the group so that we can really nail down that plan. And then we'll, as we usually do, review the dates for the next meetings and then wrap up and adjourn. Any questions or concerns, timing constraints on the agenda? All right. So we'll move into the quick updates.
Right, that's me. So Jennifer and team have been kicking booty and getting us caught up on the backlog. So we are on track to have the realignment organics data available in Seedon at the end of November. Shortly after that, there will be the Region 3 special project data. in December, and the Region 5 Rivers project will be in early 2025. Those are our top 3 priorities that she's working through. Along with all of that, Jennifer has actually finished putting the 2023 metals data into CDN. That was completed in August of this year. And we got an update that the organics analysis has been completed, but we're still waiting on Swamp IQ to receive those data. Those should be coming to us hopefully by the end of this year, and those will be pushed to CDN in early 2025. And we'll have more refined dates on all of that at our Q1 meeting. So stay tuned. We're catching up. All great things. And yeah, next slide, please. We'll talk a little bit about all of this today, but the 2024 sampling along the Central and North Coast has been complete. Rock on, Moss Landing sample collection team. Looking forward to hearing that update. You hopefully are all joined to the Safety at Work group email list. And so over the past many months, Autumn and I have been working together to send updates out to you periodically to keep people on track with what's been collected. The last update was sent last week, I think. So yeah, the metals data will be in CDN around May-ish, 2025. Again, these are all estimated timelines. So the next due meeting might already be in, or we might need to push it out a little bit more. And then organics data for 2024, we'll figure that out when we finish the other organics in terms of timelines when that'll be available. We still have the PFAS archive project. We're working on planning for that. The preparation of archives will happen around February, and those will be shipped to SGS Access, our chemistry lab, in March. No idea how long it's going to take them to get through all of that. So again, we will stay tuned on when things will be available in CDN. But that's where we're at with our monitoring and data status updates, and we'll be hearing about reports throughout the day. Oh yeah. As usual, I am sneaky and add links to things as you send things out. But is there anything, an advisory that I may have missed, or anything coming soon that you want to give us a hint about?
Yeah, it looks like you're up to date, and we have Lake Casitas will be coming out in the near future.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
Nick has joined, so I'm going to put you on the spot. Welcome. Any monitoring council updates other than the fact that the next meeting is in December that you want to flag for us?
Yeah, hi everybody. So yeah, the next meeting is December 20th. We're still working on topics, working with Greg on that. Last meeting was focused on eDNA, which is a really interesting topic. So if anybody's interested in that, check out the recording on YouTube. I just got recently an update on the web pages, which I know is taking way longer than everybody wanted. And your group was one of the first to get it done, but hopefully the CCF network or the FF team will be able to finish their piece of it by, in October's here, but within the next week or so, and hopefully there'll be something for people to look at by that next meeting. So hopefully that that will be coming and be part of it, and people will be able to actually, that are outside the organization, see the test pages or beta pages and provide feedback before going completely live. So long time coming, and I appreciate all the work you and you especially put into it. So that's pretty much it for now.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. And when the, if you can go back for a second, when the web updates are live, I'll be sure to send an announcement out to the email list. And at the following Safety Work Group meeting, we'll have a demo so folks can learn how to navigate and don't have to hopefully suffer through finding what you're used to finding. One thing that I wanted to flag is we usually do an update to the council on STU happenings approximately annually. But if there are other topics that you would like to bring to the council, please let us know. Send Nick an email, send me an email. There's a lot of great topics being discussed at the STU, but if there's something you feel is missing, please let us know and we can work with Nick to get something set up. Okay, now on to the next one. So the bioaccumulation monitoring program training series is still rocking and rolling. We had another training back in September, and the slides and recording are available online. We have 2 more trainings, and then we'll finish this series. One on December 2nd, where Jay is going to talk about how we analyze our data, how we interpret our data, basically going from seed-in to meaningful information. What does that look like for us, and how do we do that? And Wes will take us home talking about OEHA fish advisories and how advisories of development, how tribal data might be used. As a reminder, these live trainings, so registration should be limited to tribal environmental departments or equivalent tribal partners. And everyone else can reap the benefits of these trainings once everything's posted, which usually happens like the week of or the week after the training. And this is actually what I presented on at the tribal conference last week, which is that what the next slide's about, Jay?
Yes.
Wow. Oh, I'm so good. Yeah, so I was actually invited to join a group of tribal partners that were presenting on tribal beneficial uses from their perspective. And those partners were the same ones that helped us co-develop the training series: Sherry Norris from the California Environmental Indian Alliance and Sarah Ryan from the Big Valley Band of Pomo Indians. And we got a shout out of the training series and a couple of different talks, but it was an honor to be a part of that group, and it was a really great discussion. If you weren't able to attend, which you probably weren't, that's okay. The recordings of the conference are available on the US EPA YouTube channel, and it'll probably be a month or 2 before they're up, but when they're up, I will let you all know. There was a lot of great talks about, FHABs and PFAS and all sorts of other things from our US EPA partners and from tribes. So with that, I'll pass it to Tay to talk about the NOMS conference.
Yeah, next week I'll be attending the North American Lake Management Society conference in Lake Tahoe, and looking forward to sharing our long-term Bass Lake monitoring data set with them. I still haven't started on the slides, but it's stuff that you guys have seen before mostly, but I do have the panel 5 mercury data that I'll be folding into the long-term time series. So it's a nice data set. I'll be excited to share it with this group.
Thanks,
And
Jay.
the presentation's on Friday.
Oh, so you got plenty of time to create.
Yeah.
You got ages. The National Monitoring Conference will be in March in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I have received approval to attend in person, and was invited by our US EPA partners to come and talk about how the bioaccumulation monitoring program and this group is working to operationalize equity in the work that we do. So sharing our successes, our challenges, what we're learning, in hopes that other monitoring programs can follow our lead and operationalize equity in a way that makes sense for those groups. I'll be part of a panel. That's all I know. I don't know any other details yet, so I haven't created slides yet either. I'll keep you all posted. Registration should be coming soon, and if there's recordings of that, if I create slides, I'll share all of that with everyone here and make it available on our web pages.
That's late for you, Anna, to not have slides ready for that yet.
I deserve that, but yeah. Uh, I'm no longer that person, Jay, unfortunately. That's the end of the past. Are there any other conferences or meetings that folks are attending or have attended recently that they want to share with the STU folks? Okay. Great.
All right, I've got a couple of regional monitoring program updates. First, the San Francisco Bay Regional Monitoring Program. I've been telling you about the monitoring that we're doing this year and our 5-year cycle of monitoring sport fish in the bay. So the fish collections are now complete for that effort as well, and I'm happy to say the new contractor that we're using was able to hit our targets pretty well. One of the highlights from a STU perspective is that we've been wanting to coordinate with the realignment effort, and one of the the concrete way that we've done this, we had a couple of ideas, but the whole body fish sampling was not really a viable thing, so weren't able to do that. But we did sample this location that's really the top priority for the stakeholders in Region 2 realignment, Hunters Point in San Francisco. And we sampled 2 different spots in this area and successfully got Shiner surf perch and staghorn sculpin. So we've got those fish and we're moving forward with analyzing them, which is a good sort of preliminary step towards the realignment monitoring that'll be happening in the bay next year. And I'm sure there'll be continued interest in Hunters Point. And then also listed here is a link to the latest report from the Regional Monitoring Program on bay water quality, the Pulse of the Bay. We put out the Pulse every 2 years. The theme this year is contaminants of emerging concern, and it's intended to be a go-to guide for CECs that are the highest priority in the bay. Includes fair amount of bioaccumulation data, sport fish, bird eggs. So the link to that is provided here. And then another regional monitoring program that I work on, and it's been very busy on in the last few weeks, is the Delta RMP. The Delta RMP conducted pretty intensive mercury monitoring for a 7-year period from 2016 to 2022, and it included a lot of black bass monitoring at different locations around the Delta, and along with water sampling, and so that we could examine the relationship between methyl mercury in water and mercury in the bass. So I'm about done with a draft report on this 7-year data set there, and it's the best data set that we've got in California on interannual variation. So this 7 years of annual monitoring at a set of 6 core locations, and then some other stations were added in. It's unusual to have that kind of data set, and it was very enlightening to see what we got out of that. At many stations, there wasn't that much interannual variation, but at a couple of stations, there was extreme interannual variation. One I'm showing here on the McElmney River, which in 2016 had a impairment level of concentration of 0.5 parts per million. It's still kind of a high concentration, but things really shot up in 2017 after the 5-year drought ended, and then the concentration stayed very high at around 1.5 parts per million for 5 years, and then dropped back down So there's some interesting things going on at this station and at the San Joaquin River at Vernalis, probably related to inundation of floodplains and wetlands due to hydrologic variation. So I'm working on wrapping up a report that's trying to interpret that data set as well as we can. And I'm thinking at some point I'll share this presentation on this with the Stu maybe in January. And then one other thing I want to mention, I'll put a link in the chat, but just this morning I saw an article on PFAS in deer and turkey in Maine, and Maine has issued a no consumption advisory for deer and turkey in certain areas, and it's related to the application of sludge on farmland in certain parts of Maine. So I don't know if OEA has heard about that, but they were seeing concentrations of PFAS averaging in the 20s of parts per billion, getting up to 50 parts per billion in deer and over 100 in turkey. So, and thought that was pretty interesting new twist on PFAS bioaccumulation.
Hey, Jay, thanks for pointing that out. I've seen a presentation regarding the sludge application and high PFAS in the cows and the milk. Yeah, and I think New York State, along with Cornell, I believe, is going to be monitoring waterfowl and seeing what kind of PFAS levels they might see. So interesting work going on in that regard.
Yeah. Interesting. Another related note on waterfowl, the RMP did do some waterfowl monitoring about 15 years ago or so. So that is, there is some history of waterfowl contaminant analysis in the state. Something to consider, especially with PFAS adding a new dimension to everything. Yeah, Chris.
So USGS conducted the sampling for a fairly large-scale project on PFAS in deer livers. The livers were collected voluntarily from hunters at a fairly large number of locations. Quite a few here in central Missouri that I know about. The results of that, people who submitted their samples were informed of their results about 6 months ago. I expect there'll be a report on that pretty soon. I'll let you guys know when it hits the street, and I'll send you a link to the report when it becomes available.
Great, thanks, Chris. All right, any other quick updates from the group before we move on? All right, we're a little behind, so we'll go on to the next item, which is an update from Autumn and Moss Landing on sampling and analysis.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm actually going to turn most of this over to Scott Lucas, who was the lead on most of these fishing trips. So he can talk much better about the sampling part, and then I'll wrap it up at the end with a little bit about the analysis and processing. If Scott is still on.
So we finished this work that began in 2018, and long time coming, but we collected fish from, I think, 68 zones, and our sampling started this year a little bit late, so we had 3 months and we covered 17 zones to finish it out. We collected about 630 fish, and yeah, just a lot of work in a short amount of time, but I felt it went really well overall.
Next slide.
Next slide.
Yep. Just let me know when you want me to advance.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good. So there's us processing our fish aboard one of the charter boat days that we were able to collect. So you can see the top 5 fish that were collected there. You know, mostly that's a representative view of what we caught, but there's a little bit of skew there because blue rockfish, they only wanted 5 at each zone. So otherwise that might have been further up the list. Let's see. Next slide, please. So we use a variety of gear. There's a picture of us trying to dive underneath the pier at Point Arena. Visibility was unfortunately not very good, but there are a couple of roadblocks. We had about 4 months worth of work plus jammed into 3 months because we got a late start because our permit didn't get approved until July 15th. Let's see, and also right during our sampling period, we were given notice that we had to finish up all of our collection in the San Francisco area up to Bodega Bay by August 31st due to the longfin smelt being listed as an endangered species officially. So we had to kind of drop our planned schedule and concentrate on those areas so we could finish it up by August 31st. There's one site that we couldn't get out of, Cape Mendocino, Eureka Coast. That's a dangerous kind of area to get out due to its location. That's a Humboldt Bay, the exit from there to get out. So we tried to plan around it a little bit, but it just wasn't going to happen. So we replaced that zone with Pacifica Coast, which we sampled in 2021, but we didn't get much data there because it was kind of dangerous at that point as well. So we ended up getting quite a few fish out of the Pacifica Coast area to augment what we collected before. And let's see. Point Arena, we did go up there and sample, but a lot of it was hook and line from the pier because we tried several times to work with the boat hoist off the boat ramp there. At one point, it was closed down for about a month, and we didn't know when it was going to get fixed. And then kind of last minute, they said it got fixed, but at that point, it was too late for us to go out, and the conditions were not good. So we tried to dive. We did get some fish off the wharf there. Tried off the beach, tried diving, but it wasn't our best as far as numbers of fish collected, but we did put in the effort there. I think that's it as far as that. Autumn, I'll hand it off to you as far as the lab stuff.
Sure. Thanks, Scott. So we've been chugging away in the lab, and as of yesterday, I have authorized the dissections of everything but the very last station, which was the Big Sur Coast. Harry, did you have a question about the sampling?
Yeah, question back to Scott on Bodega Harbor. I was noticing there weren't many fish there. Was that because of the longfin smelt issue?
I can answer that, Scott, if you want.
Yeah, that's a hard bay to sample because actually it's almost just like a channel for boats to get in and out. There's not a wide area where you can actually hook and line fish. It's pretty choked up with eelgrass. So it's basically just kind of a highway in and out for boats to get out to sea. So you can't trawl in there. You can't, there's a lot of limitations as far as even hook and line or trap fishing. They did do some beach seining in there and did collect some fish, but it's just a hard area to sample just because it's pretty choked up with understory kelps and algae.
Thanks.
I'll add to that a little bit and say that while they were on site, the local fish and wildlife wardens were questioning why they were even trying to sample in there, because nobody fishes in the harbor. They all use it to get out to the coastal areas. They don't stay in there because of the difficulties that Scott was talking about. And it's my understanding, and I could be wrong, but there aren't very many native populations. They come in and they go out. They don't stay there, which with all of the eelgrass that Scott's talking about, I find interesting, but it might be too because it's really shallow. Okay, so back to this. As of yesterday, I had authorized everything but the last zone for dissections. I'm still waiting for Lauren and Jay to get back to me on what they want done. But if they do what I think they're going to do, we'll have about 425 mercury results in total. And of those, as you guys know, some of our plan calls for individuals. As of yesterday, I have now reported 28% of that to Swamp IQ. And it'll be farther down in the queue for Jennifer to load than the things that Anna was talking about in the quick updates. We should also have approximately 82 selenium composites, and we've already started the digestions on that. And I estimate about 30 PCBs. Those I think will be ready before January, but because of the holidays, I usually wait and ship those until after everything because we've had some problems with shipping in the past, and we've put a lot of effort and funds into collecting these samples, and I really hate for them to get lost in holiday shipping. So I think I'll still be waiting for those. And in the picture you can see this is April and Artemis actually dissecting. I don't know what they have on the table. I forgot to ask them. But this is the joys of processing fish. Anyway, that's all I have. So hopefully we're closer to back on track, Jay.
Well, I want to thank both of you for the great slides, and it's nice to have. I think it's nice to do this every year, and to have some of your best photos in a slide deck for us to pull from later. Very handy. So thanks for the nice photos, and special thanks to Scott for presenting. I don't think you've presented to us before, but how long have you been working on the fish collections?
Since 2015.
Yeah. So long time team member there. Thanks for all the great work out there.
Yeah, thank you.
I also just wanted to give a shout out formally. The delay in permits was a big deal. It's why we cut off feedback on September 1st. Honestly, we might need to push that a little bit sooner in the future, given how this impacted our sampling crews. But I was not expecting everything to be sampled this year, and you all pulled it off very gracefully. So yeah, thank you so much for all of your work every year and your diligence and the data. Yeah, we really appreciate everyone at Moss.
Yeah, thank you. I will add that if we do coastal like this again, there will be some things that I think that we need to revisit. For instance, the Cape Mendocino, like the first round, I think we just happened to have like the perfect day where we were able to get out. But again, it's our understanding that because it's so difficult to get to, recreational fishers are not going there. You can't even get a charter to go out there. They all go, I think it's north, right, Scott? They leave that harbor and they go north instead of going south to Cape Mendocino.
Yeah, that's my understanding. And
so, I think we've got some other things to refine before we do this again.
Absolutely. We're evolving as a program every time we do this. So I would definitely want to include that feedback in future decisions.
Yeah. I wish I had thought of this earlier, but that it would be good to have a slide on that in the slide deck for future reference. We probably won't get out to the coast again especially the North and Central, for 5 years, maybe with some limited effort. You could write down the lessons learned so that we have them for, for future reference. That would be great. And this slide presentation is a good reference to include that kind of information. And so I don't know if we want to add it in kind of after the meeting. I think it wouldn't hurt, but writing them down somewhere would be good.
Okay, we'll huddle up with our team. We still have people out sampling for other programs right now. So we'll huddle up with everybody when it's all done. And I know Scott is already starting on the cruise report for this effort.
Nice.
So that might also be another place where it's appropriate to store that kind of information
Yeah.
and, kind of lessons learned. But I can certainly provide something once we get everybody's input on it.
And we
And-
also have an internal, like, we don't share it with the Stu, but we have a list of low or unsamplable, I think it's for lakes right now, but we can expand it to, the coast and groups and things like that too.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a short agenda item at the next meeting.
Sure.
Cool.
Quick update. And you didn't need to worry about time. We were never late. We were always on time, and now
okay.
the item is ending early, so we're good.
All right.
It's very unlike us, but here we are.
All right. Well, then we can move on to the next item. Talking about the long-term monitoring priorities. And Anna, you'll start this off. Over to you.
Yeah. If you want to go to the next slide. It's, a lot happens in 3 months since we've last talked. And I just want to provide like a grounding for all of us and a reminder of how we got to where we're going to be discussing. So we've been talking about this long-term monitoring plan in one form or another since, I guess, January of 2023 is when we started planning for the priorities assessment process. You can see the timeline here. We've had lots of discussion from individual regions, organizations, tribes. We had a synthesis discussion back in April. I shared swamp management decisions with you in April as well. And Jay has been working on writing all of that up in a plan to reflect our discussions and the priorities that we've come to together. Next slide, please. So the key here is the last 5 years of this timeline. It needs to be updated in other ways, but we'll deal with that later. For the purposes of the next 5 years, we're going to be focusing on filling data and information gaps. We're starting with lakes in 2026, as we've been talking about. We will be moving to rivers in 2027, and we'll follow up with the coast in 2028 and 2029, so that we can partner with the Bay RMP process or the BITE process. And other things. So that's the big picture plan, and we'll talk about nitty-gritty details more in a moment. Go to the next slide, please. We had a couple of reasons for selecting the rotation that we did, so lakes and then rivers and then coast, and why we're focusing on data gaps. A lot of it was when we started this process in January of 2023, we were missing a lot of results, that we were still going through the data backlog. Data was still coming in. We want to see the results from our long-term lake study, our long-term coast study. So lakes is coming in first. So that's why we're comfortable making more decisions on that sooner rather than later. Coast is going to take a minute. That's why we pushed it towards the end. We want to see those results. We want to have the synthesis conversations before we start thinking about how the following 5 years of the program is going to operate. We also had a lot of conversations around PFAS. It's everywhere in the environment and in conversation. Everyone's talking about PFAS. We don't have an amazing budget to just add on another really complicated contaminant. And so we're going to be focusing on the archive project first, again, to get more information to help us inform future decisions. And when we do have money in the budget, we'll be prioritizing locations near potential sources. And if there's more, we'll go other places just to kind of like ground truth and get a better understanding of the how PFAS is showing up in the environment. I think, yeah, so the table on the bottom kind of shows the reports that are going to be coming in. We've also we'll be getting information through the San Francisco region realignment to kind of help inform future work as well. Next slide, please. This is a sensitive topic because budgets are complicated right now for all of us that work for the state. But as the hard decisions are made, that we know they're coming, we don't know what they are, but we know they're coming, right? I think it's more important now because we're in such hard times to really think about ways that we can work together, leverage efforts, combine funds to really make every dollar go farther. When I was reviewing these slides earlier today, I was thinking about Captain Planet and how all of our powers combine, right? So, you know, the budgets are rough for all of us in the state, and you know, other environmental programs, tribal governments are also having a challenging time with budgets. So just a reminder to continue to utilize the Safety Work Group and build our partnerships so that we can continue monitoring in a way that is meaningful and continues to protect public health. Next slide, please. So this is a slide that I've showed for the last bit, just an acknowledgement of the things that we promised to do, A, B, C, D, and E, and that we've been doing them on time. So today we are sharing the final plans that we'll be going with. We might have minor revisions based on this discussion, but the plans are pretty much set for the long-term plan, with the reminder that we have our annual feedback process. So we'll continue to refine, you know, year by year based on the budgets that we have and the new needs that come up and things like that. So this long-term monitoring plan is intended to be the big picture, our smorgasbord of options, and then year by year we will select the option that works best for us. We'll discuss that through our annual feedback process, and we'll finalize those decisions every year. So I think with that, it's over to you, Jay. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Anna. So first I want to say that as I've been looking back through all of the materials that have been shared, all the input that we received, the process that we've gone through in doing this write-up to document it all. This has been a really solid process of planning. I think we can all feel good about it, and I think Anna deserves special credit for organizing it so well. Very deliberate, thoughtful planning process that, you know, is the best that I've seen, certainly for the stew and bog over the years. So, and then, you know, also I want to thank everybody for providing the thoughtful input along the way. So it was neat to be looking through all that and the process that we went through, all the meetings, lots of meetings. But I think it was super valuable. So where we are right now is I've drafted a write-up that I sent to Anna. I had wanted to have this done earlier than Monday, but didn't, you know, wasn't quite able to swing that. But the report is nearly ready for you all to review. After Anna gets her first look, we'll get it out to all of you for review in the next week or two. But it is coming very soon. A quick overview of what's in it. The usual stuff at the beginning, a short summary. I thought in these, especially in these hard budget times, it'd be good to remind ourselves of the need for bioaccumulation monitoring in California. So there's a short write-up on that. A review of the monitoring that's been done, brief overview, and then discussion of how the BMP, the Bioaccumulation Monitoring Program, has evolved. Starting with quite a high amount of funding at the very beginning, and we did some amazingly extensive work across the state with that funding. And then the funding basically dropped down to the current level in about 2013, and has been pretty constant since then. So an overview of that, and then getting into the plan for 2025 through 2029 and the process that we went through. So again, for posterity, documenting this great process that we implemented, and then the outcomes, documenting those, and then going through design options for different funding levels. This was one of the things requested by Swamp Management. So, and we've talked about this, I shared a summary of this at our last meeting with a low funding level, lower than current funding, and then a couple of tiers up from that is to illustrate what we might do if the program was funded more appropriately. So that's kind of the overview of what's in the document. So what I wanted to do today was talk more about the tiers that are presented. It's the sort of meat of the document, and talk about some minor refinements that have been made in response to the input that we got by the September deadline. So we start with tier 2, which is the current funding level, and we'll be talking more detail about tier 2 and what we're doing in 25 and 26 with the current funding level in the next agenda item today. But this is basically the status quo and what we're doing, what we're planning for the next 5 years if the funding is sustained at this level. Realignment gets 200,000 per year, and then 350,000 per year goes to the statewide sampling and analysis. This line also includes Moss Landing's work for management and coordination of the STU and the sampling and analysis effort. And then I didn't list it on all these slides, but it's in the report, the SFEI component. If for those of you who are sort of doing the math, there's 100,000 per year for SFEI at this funding level. 50,000, I reduced it to 50,000 at the tier 1 lower funding level, and then if the programs that really funded well at the highest funding level, I bumped that up to 150 per year. But that's another part of the budget that makes everything add up to the right amount, which is 650,000 per year. So with this level of funding for the statewide monitoring, we can do approximately 15 locations per year. The type of work that we have planned can work with this level of funding, where we're picking high priority locations and data gaps at those locations to fill. But it's not really enough for a systematic statewide design. There's when we get to the coast in the 4th and 5th year of this 5-year phase, we'll have some choices, difficult choices to make about how we cover the bite, which includes 27 zones. So we would, we could use all of our coast dollars to fully cover the bite, but if we want to cover the whole coast, we'll need to pare back what we do in the bite in some manner. Our guidance from management was to include targeted analysis of mercury, PCBs, and PFAS, and targeted inclusion of bait fish. This is getting to be a pretty small effort with 15 locations per year, so there's a lot of overhead that's required to make this happen every year. So it's getting to the point where I think it is worth it, but kind of getting to be barely worth the effort to coordinate and manage the effort for this small number of locations to be sampled. One of the more recent developments is that we've talked with Melissa Turner, the manager of the Delta RMP, and they're very interested in coordinating with the rivers effort in 2027. So that would be a nice coordination with that regional program. And then another, for all these levels, there's kind of an option of just kind of reducing the number of different things that we're doing. One of the suggestions that was made for this funding level, if we wanted to focus on one thing, we could focus on statewide monitoring and then get that funding up to, we'd be able to sample another maybe 5 to 10 locations per year in that scenario. So just recording the suggestions, we're going with the plan that's as it's laid out in the upper bullets. Okay, then next, looking at tier 1, where there's a funding reduction, and the overall funding level here was 375. So realignment. So with this sort of first option, realignment would be reduced a bit. My impression is that realignment's a priority that we want to keep going, and it's I think it's a pretty neat thing that we're doing, and I'm personally think it's a nice priority. So this would reduce realignment a little bit, but keep it going on an annual basis. Keep the funding going on an annual basis, kind of continuing to fund that 3-year plan of visiting, going region by region. And then the statewide monitoring would be cut in half. So in order to make this work, like, it's not really worth doing 7 or 8 stations in a year, 7 or 8 locations in a year. So this first option is to sample every other year and basically do what we're doing in the current design. We could fill high priority data gaps. We would really need to pare back on the coast. Collaborating with the bite wouldn't work very well with this level of effort. So this is our week coffee plan. Once you've got too few beans in your coffee, it's not really coffee anymore. So at this point, it's really questionable whether it's worth the effort to try and coordinate and manage statewide monitoring. So other options, and there's, with all of these tiers, there's, these are kind of options to consider of putting more of the resources towards one of the priority items. So with this level of funding, we could put all the funding towards realignment. We could put all the funding towards statewide monitoring. And then another suggestion, another priority that was clearly identified in the process was the need for statewide consumption information. So we could pool the resources and apply it towards developing a statewide consumption survey. This option will show up in the other tiers as well. I think there's some ballpark estimates for how much things will cost. I've been pretty vague about how much the consumption survey would cost, but I think it would take several years of funding at this level to do a statewide consumption survey. Part of this is based on recent experience in the Bay region, where we developed a survey questionnaire with a lot of community input, and that was a $50,000 effort just to develop a questionnaire. Then, the next steps with that survey tool will be to do some pilot testing. There's a three-phase plan concept that we've developed. So phase 2 would be pilot testing the questionnaire, which will be significant, probably bigger price tag on that, and then actually doing the survey. So just based on that kind of information and a general sense of how much work it would take to gather consumption information across the whole state with community input, it's going to take at least a few years if funding at this level to do that statewide survey. So I'll keep going through, and then we can come back and talk about the different options and menu items. So tier 3 is a moderate funding level of $1 million per year. This would basically allow the program to catch up with inflation and continue the level of effort that was expended from 2015 to 2024. So we could boost the realignment funding to again get that caught up with inflation, and then the statewide monitoring would get $650,000. And then so this would get us back to being able to do about 30 locations per year. We could do something like the long-term Bass Lake monitoring, where we select high priority water bodies and revisit them. So it's basically getting us back to the sort of the Bass Lake level of funding. This would allow us to fully partner with the BITE program like we did in twice before, and to cover the rest of the coast with probably maybe a little more than 1 year of funding, but somewhere between 1 and 2 years worth of funding to cover the rest of the coast. And we could continue to generally include, and then add in PFAS, but generally include mercury and PFAS along with mercury, and do targeted PCB work. So these are all rough estimates. Autumn's going to review the document and give me a reality check on my estimates of numbers of locations and things. And then there are different possible options at the $1 million funding level. So one option is to really get realignment moving faster. I think again, I think we all value the realignment effort, and I think it's important for Swamp and for the BMP to have this effort where it's really an EJ, a solid EJ oriented project. But we're going really slow. It'll take 27 years to get through all 9 regions. So one option, if in a world with better funding, would be to go faster on realignment. It would require more funding for the monitoring and analysis, but then also more staff time from the water board. So that's not explicitly included here, but we could accelerate realignment in one scenario with the $1 million a year level of funding while maintaining the statewide sampling effort at approximately what we're doing now, so we continue to fill data gaps. So another way we could use $1 million per year is to focus on gathering consumption information, so we could continue, like slightly adjust realignment and statewide monitoring for inflation, but then add in $250 per year for this consumption survey. So again, I've talked about kind of my estimate for how long that'll take with this sort of funding level. It'd be a multi-year effort, but that $250K per year could get us there over time. Another priority that's been mentioned by our agency partners, OEHA and DPH, and many of the regions as well, is shellfish. In name, the Safety Work Group, in our mission statement, it mentions fish and shellfish, but we haven't been collecting any shellfish data since the bog began. It's long been recognized as a gap. So with this option, we could put that $250,000 per year for a special project on shellfish. And this could, similar to the consumption survey, be a project that would take several years. Exactly how many would take some thought to figure out and scope out, but over several years, we could, I think, generate a good statewide data set on contaminants in shellfish, including bivalves, but also crabs and lobsters, which the state hasn't. State has a nice history of looking at bivalves, but hasn't done much with crabs and lobsters. So we could look more comprehensively at shellfish.
Just to add, before you move on, Jay, for the record, the shellfish focus, agencies are concerned about shellfish. We've heard shellfish as a need from tribal government partners, community-based organizations. And not only is shellfish part of our mission statement, it's part of the legislation that created the program. So the legislature from the beginning said shellfish, and we've never been funded well enough to do that. And then also just shout out to Region 9 and others who have been able to monitor more than just bivalves in their awesome work. So yeah,
yep.
Thanks.
Okay, and then going to a brighter future possibility. I decided to take for the next year to go to $2 million per year and not get too wild about possible funding increases, kind of keep it more real. So 2 million a year sounds like a lot after we've been at 650 for so long. But still in a state like California, we've got thousands of water bodies, we've got hundreds of 303D listings and advisories across the state. Fishing is a very popular activity. Part of the it's a significant part of the economy. There's a major public health issue related with fish consumption, especially for disadvantaged communities. So when this is for a state that's got the 5th largest economy in the world. So when you think of all that, 2 million a year doesn't sound like that much. But I think it would, so I added the word more, that this level of funding would be more commensurate with the task of monitoring and reducing risks from bioaccumulation. So in this, I identify one sort of basic scenario here where we accelerate realignment. We fund statewide monitoring at $1 million per year, which would allow us to do about 40 water bodies per year. And this is kind of at the level of the Bass Lake monitoring. We were kind of shifting resources to complete the Bass Lake monitoring, but what we were doing with the lakes in those years was there were about 35 lakes in each panel that we sampled. And then we also took requests from regions and added to that. So we were doing about 40 lakes per year in those Bass Lake years. So this would get us to that level. And then there would still be 250,000 for special projects. And there's a list of special projects that could be worked through in this sort of scenario. So consumption survey could spend a few years and get the consumption information that everybody agrees is a priority. We could spend a few years and get the shellfish survey. We could improve access to the bioaccumulation information. We could revisit wildlife, which we did a 2-year effort looking at mercury in birds in 2011 and 12 and found significant risk, but there hasn't been any follow-up. There's also a lot of marine mammals accumulate bioaccumulative pollutants to high levels, and that hasn't really been looked at. It's been, at least not in any kind of systematic statewide way. There have been a few studies here and there. CEC monitoring is something that we haven't done much of. We're working on incorporating PFAS, but there are a lot of other emerging contaminants that we could look at. And then another need, specially identified by DPH, is for information on whole fish and the body parts of fish to refine our consumption advice. So I haven't fully adapted Anna's nice graphic summary, but I was working on that this morning. But so it now shows the tiers that are in the report and talks about this, you know, the sort of menu of special studies that can be worked in at each of the tiers, depending on how we prioritize things. So I will stop there and see if folks have any comments or questions.
Yeah, before we open it up, I just want to reiterate that this document is meant to capture our discussions and document what we've been hearing from folks and laying out some potential, hopefully realistic possibilities. This is not carving things in stone. If someday we do get 1 million per year, we'll consider tier 3 and then adapt as we need to based on where we are at the time. So I just want to start there with the setting expectations, but this will be a really great resource for us to refer back to, and also to communicate the importance of this program and the Safety at Work group, and trying to get more resources so that we can do better at protecting public health, supporting other water board activities like TMDLs, tribal beneficial uses, all these other things that are happening that use our data to make those decisions. So with that, feel free.
Thanks, Anna. And I'll just, say it maybe a slightly different way, is that, if we were to get $1 million a year, this document would help start the discussion.
Yeah.
It's not at all set in stone, but it's laying out options to consider.
Yeah. Thanks, Jay. All right, OEMA SWRCB, who didn't rename yourself. Who are you?
Sorry.
What do you want?
Sorry, I'm driving. I keep on going in and out. Yeah, this is great. Kudos to this. This is super valuable information. And I was just wondering, I know that we as state employees can't do this, but I'm wondering if maybe Jay or SFBI or other participants on the work group can take something like this report or even like an executive summary of really just this key information, along with the importance of bioaccumulation monitoring, the lack of shellfish, what we could do with the funding, what the cutting of funding would do, and get this out to the legislature and let this start making people aware of the decisions that they make or could make. But I think this is the exact type of tool that we need, that we can, as state employees, or I or Anna can't necessarily utilize. But part of the strength of the council and its work groups is that there are participants that can engage directly with representatives in the legislature and give talks to the legislative staff to say, hey, like, this is an important piece. We have legislation on the books that says this, but we've never been able to even fulfill that. You're looking for making a mark as a new legislator, like this would be a great bill opportunity to fund this program. It helps public health. There's equity lens all over the realignment. Like, this is the type of program that really should be supported for much of the reasons that was just laid out by Jay. I'm just wondering if there's any plans or if there's any partners on this work group that will be willing and able to kind of elevate this.
As far as SFEI goes, I'm not sure if that's something that if we can do that kind of lobbying. In general, our policy is to stay away from advocating for policies. So I'm not sure if we can do it, but I'd like to hear if others, and happy to do whatever we can do.
And I don't want to put people on the spot here to answer that question on a recording that'll be posted in the public also, being sensitive to that. But this is something, this presentation, when the document is final, we can bring it to the council, and then they can have that discussion on how to support the work group and the programs behind the work group.
Yeah. So
sure.
Yeah,
that's what I was kind of getting to that too. Sorry, Jay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to play people, so I want to plant that seed really, and maybe it's just like, if you then forward that, I think you replant that seed at the council. But that's just something that we've leaned on Squirt to do that kind of work. We've leaned on some of the other partners in the NGO space to do some of this advocacy work. Just kind of getting that in people's mind, because the reality is that tier 1 or even worse is probably on the horizon. So like just getting that seed planted early is what I'm trying to do here, but no pressure on folks.
Thanks, Nick.
So I think back to the call for potential stew items for the council. I think maybe December or the meeting after we'll be ready to do that.
Yeah. Let's regroup after we get the report finalized, and
yeah. First things first.
Yeah. Jason.
Yeah, I kind of just wanted to get a poll of the interest that other people in this room have with collection of prey fish, because it's kind of low down on the list for the line items that have been presented. And there's really, it is bioaccumulation, and it does have an impact. And in certain situations that I'm aware of, it may be a better indicator of what the actual contaminants are because of the paucity of spore fish that you can catch from a particular location. And so I just kind of wanted to see if there was anyone besides me that was interested in figuring out how we can fund something like that, because as it is for me in Region 8, I think the only way that I could get to issue like that is if we wrote an order to force the permittees to do that, because we just don't have the money, which is possible and may occur. But I'm just wondering, how much interest there is, or whether there would be a more widespread support for trying to get money to do that, at least in select locations.
When we do sample prey fish regularly also, but Jason asked for a poll, so I'm gonna see that. What's our question? How many people here are in support of collecting prey fish? We'll use your reaction button and give us a green check mark if you're in support. That way we can get you them numbers, Jason. If you're in support of prey fish, and a red X if you're not, and the blue arrow, the right arrow if you want to abstain. So let me add my vote. I don't know if you can see the check marks, but we've got 31 people in the call. So far, 20 people have given us a green check in support of Prayfish. 2 folks have abstained, and no one has had a negative word against Prayfish, according to this poll. So I think for me, that means there's continued support for Prayfish moving forward. But yeah, hopefully
Okay.
does that help?
Yeah. So, I mean, let's pretend like we had enough money to add that as a line item. It would still follow the cycle of zones where collection would occur. So by the time they get to the zone that I'm interested in, I could be dead or retired, by that time. So I'm thinking if there was a way for us to get it funded prior to where we fall in that, future cycle, I think that what would help me is to because I'm just not familiar with tissue and seeding, and this is where I need the data is to get it into seeding so that I can start evaluating TMDL thresholds. So if we could have some kind of collaboration with your group who is like working on an integrated setup system to get tissue data into seeding. And that's kind of what we're having trouble with in my region, so that we can work off that as a framework if we were able to get tissue data prior to when our cycle actually occurs in our zone.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also, if you hang on with us after the break, the next item for 2025, we'll also be talking about our annual feedback process. So every year, folks can add requests to what we think we'll be monitoring. That opens up around July during our Q3 meeting. So regions can add to those requests. If you have funding, you can throw funding in to help us, do something targeted that you're really interested in your region. If not, just tell us what you want, what you really, really want, and we'll see what we can do as part of our process. So that's been an ongoing thing that folks opt into, and we're going to continue that process moving forward. But I saw Autumn raise her hand in the middle of your comment.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say that, Jason, you'll see Prayfish on the menu of things that we're considering for 25 and 26 when we get there. So you'll see that.
So my question actually is for Jason. So as others have said, we have been collecting prayfish, and we've been analyzing for mercury and selenium as a composite of approximately 10 fish. I'm curious if you're interested in other chemical compounds, or if that covers what you're looking for, because you're from region 8, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the current TMDL in Newport Bay, well, the ones that are active, one is PCBs and DDT, so legacy contaminants. And what I would like to see, of course, is the first collection round to find nothing, and then we could, that's kind of what I would like to see. But we don't have any prayfish data, and the data that we have for sportfish is pretty small. So it would be those 2 legacy contaminants, but also recent assessment for maintenance dredging for a big dredging project showed that mercury levels are very high in Newport Bay sediment, and so mercury is also one. Selenium, not so much for us.
Okay, so you're talking about coastal waters as opposed to lakes, because we do the prey usually in the lakes.
Yeah, it would be a bay, the harbor. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you.
But I will say that we've done and are doing pretty extensive prayfish monitoring in San Francisco Bay, so it's definitely a good tool for bays.
Before I go to Wes, I just want to note, Jason, I added a link to the Swamp Data Dashboard in the chat. That's a really great way to see the data for our program that's available. And I'm happy to chat with you offline and give you a demo of like how to find what you need really quickly. And that's all data from CDIN as well. So if you're looking for tissue, you can filter by region, you can filter by analyte and see what we got right now, and then we can continue to partner and work together to get more data that you're looking for.
Yeah, and I think Heather is working with other staff in our region to find data that we have that isn't in sedents, because I think there's data missing.
Yeah.
So I'll, just before we move on to Wes, just also want to say that, you know, it's great to hear this input, Jason. This is, you know, this is we're always welcoming people to identify priority data needs. So it's super helpful we haven't heard about this need for Newport Bay before, so it's good to have this on our list.
Wes?
Yeah, thanks. I was just a comment on Autumn's comment regarding mercury and selenium for prey fish. It just, with some of the sampling that's gone on in San Francisco Bay, it seems like some of the organic contaminants can be very high, and part of it's due to the preparation method. And we typically provide our advice on in terms of whole body for some of those smaller species. So if there's indication, expanded kind of contaminant series, we would prefer that.
Awesome. Thanks. Okay, we have discussed into our break, but I'm still gonna give us a break. Are there any other comments, thoughts on the long-term monitoring plan before we go to break? Okay, great. Let's come back at 11:10. So we get 10 minutes and some change, and we'll dive deeper into our 2025 plan. So we will see you all at 11:10.
Okay, hopefully folks are back. If you could give a thumbs up or show your video or your camera or something. You could laugh hysterically. That would be good. All right. Good. Looks like folks are back. Some good reactions. So now we're going to talk specifically about the plan for 25 and 26. So again, we got input by the September 1st deadline, and I was able to come up with what I think is a good strategy for hitting all the priorities that were mentioned for these 2 years. So the overall priorities for 25 and 26, being responsive to input from the tribes. We really value that interaction and want to make sure that we're very responsive to their needs. Region 2 has a mercury management oxygenation study underway and is looking for partnering support from the BMP on that. So that's a possible management solution that we're prioritizing. I prioritized regional board input where the needs were specifically spelled out. Division of Water Quality listed a number of category 3 lakes that have data needs to support the integrated report process. We had some requests that were specific, and then they also have a list of high contaminant lakes that have no advisories. So I filled in the list with some of those. And then we also wanted to try to get samples from across the regions, so that all the regions have kind of a stake in what we're doing over the next couple of years. So I was basically able to come up with a plan that covers all of the specific requests from all those groups. Got to rearrange my screen a little bit here so I can see things. So first I'm just showing the lists of lakes. And the main driver for a decision on which lakes to sample is so that we can apply for a permit. So the strategy that that we're going to follow is to apply for all the lakes on the list for the 2-year period, including backup lakes. So before we were thinking, at the last meeting, the kind of not fully baked concept was to focus on 25 and then maybe include some backup lakes, but we have it'll be a better way to hit the high priorities if we kind of combine 25 and 26. And if there are lakes that we can't sample in 25, or we're able to make the budget go further, then we'll just start sampling the 26 lakes. So all the high priority lakes are on the list for either 25 or 26. We'll apply for a permit for all of them. And then also some of the lakes probably need a longer permitting process. Lakes in Region 6 with Lahont and cutthroat trout, we've been warned that that takes longer. So getting those permit wheels turning now will be good. So this we've got a list for 25 and 26. Again, we were basically able to hit all of the priorities that were specifically mentioned in the priority input process. And then there's a lot of notation on here that you don't really need to pay attention to, because we're going to get into that on the next slide. So here, our goal is to get the collection permit application in. So we're going to go forward with the permit application based on this table. I don't know, Autumn, have you guys started that or submitted that already?
I know that they have started working on it, but I don't know that it's to the actual submission of the permit request yet. But we are starting to compile, and at this point, we're putting as many species on as we can just to cover our bases.
Yeah, you guys know the usual suspects to include.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so this next table is kind of a bear, but it includes a lot of, basically the important information. And I would like to get input from all of you on what we've got in this table. It's laying out the locations and then the analytes and the species. It's organized by region. The year is indicated by that third column now, so it's just everything's included on one list. And I'll just kind of start walking you through it to orient you. So starting with Region 1, Lake Mendocino. The lake size is indicated. It's a medium-sized lake, so it's between 500 and 1,000 hectares. We usually do 2 stations at medium-sized lakes. This was requested by the Pinolville Pomo. So we haven't gotten specific input on locations within lakes or analytes from the tribes, but they filled out the survey where they indicated that analytes that they're interested in. So that's what it says over in the notes column on the right, that I filled in the analytes for this lake based on what the Pinolville Pomo said in their survey. They're interested in mercury, PFAS, selenium, and algal toxins. And so based on what we know about these contaminants, if they're interested in mercury, we should look at a predator. So the first there's a sort of predator, and I can't see that part of my screen because of the zoom bar thing, but predator, or in trout lakes where we can't get a bass species or another predator species, we sample the trout that are present. So in that scenario, we still look at mercury and selenium in the trout species. We try to hit resident trout species where we can. Kind of the least preferred is to just sample. If it's just a lot of hatchery rainbow trout, then we'll just sample the hatchery rainbow trout. But so it's the basic approach that we've always followed is we look at a predator species, mainly for mercury, and then a bottom feeder for the organics. So for this lake, given this input, well, one other thing I'll mention is we usually look at selenium along with mercury, and then PFAS accumulates about equally well in bass or bottom feeders. So we want to learn about PFAS. So I included PFAS in both bass and the bottom feeders. And then I'll get to the questions in just a sec. And then this table captures requests for looking at algal toxins. Well, we can talk more about this, but we're not going to actually be able to measure sample for algal toxins in the immediate future. We're going to talk more with the folks in the HAB group at the Water Board about possibilities for doing this, but that'll be further down the road. But for now, I'm just capturing the input and the requests that were made from each of the groups. Okay, now I'll pause for questions before I go further.
Yeah, Jennifer, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the toxins. It's not in our QAP. It's something that we would definitely need to work on getting it zipped up in a way in order for us to actually do the analysis and then have data that we can actually use.
Yeah.
And then
let me respond to that first, just to get it on the board. We will not be monitoring for algal toxins at this time. The science of how to do that in tissue, there's concerns about holding times and whether or not cyanotoxins even bioaccumulate in a way that we could capture. There's still a lot of questions. The Swamp FHAB program is developing guidance on that, and that process, they're putting together a committee or something to discuss that and other things. They'll be putting that together starting next year. So the requests that the HABS program did give us was to collect water samples to get an understanding of baseline cyanotoxins in water bodies. We don't have the capacity to do that at this time either. We didn't put any money in the BEN contract. Like, there's just too many logistics that aren't working out. So this table for toxins captures the requests. And so that when all the science catches up and our QAPs catch up, we can refer back to this as a record.
Okay, and then I will also say that there's some Delta RMP stuff that already collected and is now coming into my queue.
Okay, great.
So, and then the next one that I was going to talk about is the PFAS. So PFAS, I'm just going to put this out there, and it's not meant to be anything that's bad, but something that we need to think about is PFAS has holding times that are way more stringent than anything else we're touching in tissue.
Okay.
So that's all I'm going to say about it. I'm going to probably come back to it at a later date. I just wanted to put it out there.
Yep. Okay.
Good to know. That's kind of surprising, but good to know.
Rich.
Yeah, since you're talking about Region 1, Jay, I just wanted to point out that in Region 2, the list includes Lake Sonoma, which is actually in Region 1.
Fancy
pants. My mistake. Okay, thanks.
Region 2 is getting too much goodies anyway, so it's good to be able to move that up to Region 1. Any other thoughts, Rich or Mike? I was going to ask for Region 1 stuff.
Isn't Lake Graphene also in 1?
I was just about to say that.
Yes,
yeah,
it
Lake
is.
Graphene is in Region 1.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's in Howarth Park.
Yes.
Okay.
Nice call.
Did you want to add anything else, Mike, or just that with your hand raised?
No, I was just, yeah, Lake
Perfect.
Ralphine.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
All right.
Moving.
Okay, I'll keep going through and maybe more questions will come up as I walk you through. So going on to region 2. So San Pablo, I'm not going to do every line, but just do some more examples so you see how this is working. So San Pablo Reservoir, small. The request was for mercury for that oxygenation study. So the request was by region 2. So this, I've only got mercury listed for the predator, and then prey fish does appear over towards the right. There's a column for prey fish, mercury or selenium. So this does get a check there because I'm assuming that the prey fish are valuable in a situation like this. They're another good indicator of mercury condition. So for each of these, for all of this, we're going to send out this table. You can look at it carefully and let us know if you want to change any of these details. So today, you don't have to give me your input right now. You'll be able to look at this and think about it and then send us back your input. The analyte details are not as urgent as just getting the locations and species for the permit. So we've got more time for you guys to think about this. In region 2, there's a next series of 4 lakes that were requested by Division of Water Quality, and they asked for mercury and selenium in 3 of the lakes, and then in Lake Madigan, they wanted to fill data gaps on organochlorine pesticides, PCBs, and selenium. So for the mercury and selenium, I filled in the predator species for the OC pesticides and PCBs, bottom feeder. We're trying to save money by not just looking at everything in all the species. So whether they want prey fish, it's input I would like to get from DWQ. We're planning on doing San Pablo Reservoir again in 26, as again, monitoring the response to the oxygenation. Then California Fish and Wildlife in the North Bay region requested information on several lakes in there when they provided their input in the survey, the priority survey. So those are on here. They're backup lakes. I just filled in the analytes based on the survey input. They also requested one of the lakes in Region 5, Lake Berryessa. So if we, I want to get more, they made pretty general requests, so I would like to discuss with them more what they really need so that we can use our money efficiently, especially for the large Lake Sonoma and Lake Berryessa, which is extra large and would take multiple, we would normally do multiple locations in a lake like that. Region 3, so there were a number of lakes requested by OEHA specifically. And those are on here. And then others that I pulled off of their list. They had another sort of category that I can't remember exactly the title of it, but some of these were specific requests. Some were just pulled from another list of lakes. There was a list of lakes that public inquiries were made on, and that also needed advisories, or there were gaps for advisories. So I looked at all that and came up with these OEHA lakes, but I don't know specifically what contaminant data gaps need to be filled, so I need input from OEHA for these lakes where their name is listed.
I see Wes is on camera and unmuted, ready to go.
Yeah, Jay, we can meet offline and give you those specifics.
Yeah. Yeah, you can just send it to me.
Okay.
Unless you want to, we can meet if you want, but
Okay. Either way.
yeah. So Region 5, there were 2 more lakes that were requested by the Habamato Lel Pomo. I'm sure I'm not saying that right, but similar to Lake Mendocino, I looked at their survey input where they said they were interested in mercury, selenium, organochlorine pesticides. That's a history of DDT contamination in Clear Lake, selenium and dioxins. So they were this was one place where dioxins were mentioned. So included that. So then there's some more OEHA, some more Division of Water Quality. Region 6 provided a list of lakes that they would like to get information on. There was one, Lake Arrowhead, that was requested by a citizens group. They're interested in PFAS. So I only listed PFAS for that lake based on that. The other lakes, Lori provided this list of lakes and suggested I just use a general list. It's kind of a default list of analytes, but if you think more about that, it'd be good for you to review this and see if this list is okay with you for the analytes.
Yep, thanks, Jay. I will do a little deeper dive there and get back to you on that. I'm wanted to wade into Seedon and see what what data we already had available, and so I will try and refine the list there.
Great, thank you. Region 8 had 3 lakes with specific requests. So those were included as they requested. Region 9 requested Vale Lake, which is one that hasn't been sampled before. So I listed the full suite of things that we normally do for a lake that hasn't been sampled, which includes mercury PCBs, organochlorines, selenium, and now PFAS, and prey fish, what we normally do for a lake that hasn't been sampled. And then OEHA identified El Capitan Lake as well in Region 9. So, yeah.
Real quickly, just going back to Region 8, I see Jason's still on the line. Would adding mercury and prey fish be helpful for those 3 lakes that we have listed in Region 8?
Wait a minute. Here I am. I'm
Put you
not
on the spot. Sorry about that.
I'm not working on the TMBLs for those lakes, so I'm not sure. I would personally not even be looking at these data, honestly.
Okay. That's all I wanted to gut check with you. Perfect.
Okay.
And then one other note, Region 7, the only requests they made were for some tributaries to the Salton Sea. So we have that input, but it doesn't really fit in to the lake monitoring, but we're keeping it in mind for the rivers. All right, so toxins we talked about, we're not ready to include them yet. So the next steps are for me to write up this plan, which I'm aiming to get done by next Monday. And then send that out for review with including this table. I can send the table out sooner if while it's fresh in your mind, if you want to work on revising it. But yeah, we need to get your input and fill this out and try to make the most efficient use of the dollars that we've got. So pick the things that you need, but we need to be economical.
Yeah, and I'll just note, I am going, just like I have been for past 2 meetings, I'm going to be processing this recording this afternoon, and we'll send a link out for the recording and including the slides, which already has the table, this afternoon or tomorrow, definitely by the end of the week. So folks will have that in their inboxes, and I want to have a really quick turnaround on the feedback so that we can finalize this for permitting. So I'm setting a deadline for all of us to email feedback to Jay by November 15th. So that gives you a couple weeks. And the decision made. There'll be a reminder of that in the next step slides too. Autumn?
I just want to remind folks too that if there are specific species in the water body in your region that you're interested in, to let us know so that we can make sure that it gets on the permit request. What we typically do when we're making those permits is we look at what the lake managers say are in that water body, but it's not always up to date. So if there's something that you know that's in there that you specifically want, please let us know sooner by the 15th, as Anna said, that way we can get it in the request. Thank you.
Thanks, Autumn.
Yep, thanks. All right, so next steps, be sharing. I mean, it's the final plan, but a draft write-up. So we'll be looking for any refinements to this table and what I lay out in the plan, but the rest of the plan will be a lot of the standard things that we've included in past plans for the lake sampling. So there won't be that much new stuff there. We'll get that permit application submitted, begin sampling April and May of next year, and so we'll go down our list for 25. Maybe we'll be able to hit some of the 26 lakes, and then we'll be ready to go next year with a permit for sampling the rest of the lakes that are on our wish list.
Awesome. And I just wanted to add a reminder that we'll be revising 2026 and during the annual feedback process based on what we can collect in 25 and all that good stuff. So just flagging that.
Thanks.
Cool.
All right. That's it for that item.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. I'm going to take over. So if you could monitor the chat for me, that would be really helpful.
Yep.
It's that time of year. Folks are wrapping up 2024, thinking about 2025, and we are too. This is becoming a standard item on our October stew meeting agenda, where I would just want to check in and make sure that we're all on the same page regarding meeting dates and getting us ready to do what we do best in 2025. So we propose to continue to meet over Zoom to reduce travel costs, meeting virtually regardless. If folks love Microsoft Teams with all their heart, then we could switch to that, but Zoom is better for folks that don't work at the water boards. So we're proposing to continue to work to meet over Zoom. And it's also helpful for recordings and yada, yada, yada. You'll continue to need to register in advance of the Zoom meetings, but that registration link is open until the meeting ends. So you can like jump on in the middle of a meeting and still register and join. And we propose continuing our quarterly meetings. Last year we had a lot more this year we had a lot more meetings because we had that special topic. So we can continue to do that as needed. 9:30 to 12:30 mornings seem to be good for folks. And as usual, we shorten that time when that makes sense for and the last Wednesday of the month in January, April, July, and October seem to be working for folks. So those specific dates are January 29th, April 30th, July 30th, and October 29th. So I wanted to share a couple of Zoom polls today just to get a check with folks on the call on what you're thinking about all these things. So I am going to launch a poll, and a box is going to pop up on your screen. There will be 3 questions that I'll go over in a second. There's going to be a drop down But if you can't see all 3 questions, you might need to scroll, so keep that in mind. You'll select your options, press submit, and then I will share the results and we can talk about and discuss as needed. So all questions are required, but there's one choice per question, yes, no, no preference, or abstain. So if you don't want to share a preference, then just abstain or tell us no preference. But you'll need to respond to everything in order to complete the poll. The questions are, do you have concerns about using Zoom as a virtual platform? Do you have concerns about keeping the same meeting time as in past years? And if we do see that someone has concerns, we'll talk about that after we complete the poll. And do you have concerns about keeping the same meeting frequency as in past years? The past, I think, 3 years, 3 or 4 years. Last Wednesday of the month, January, April, July, October. And I think we've done in the past, if a lot of folks flag that there's a meeting conflict for a large group of stewards, then we can shift as needed. But that'll be like the standard, so everyone can register, get things on their calendars, that sort of thing. So I am going to remember how to launch a poll. Okay. Okay, I just launched the poll. Someone please tell me that they can see it on their screen. Oh, I see someone responding.
I can see it.
Great. If you are on this call, you are part of the stew, and we encourage every single one of you to complete the poll. There are 24 folks. I'd like 90% at least participation. We're at 70%, 75, 70. Oh, y'all are good. 83. Um, 91. Okay. I'm one that it's probably waiting for, and I'm not going to complete the poll. And the other person is probably Jay, maybe?
I mean, me, yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome to complete the poll. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So the results should be sharing on your screen. They don't show up in the recording, so I'm just going to talk through the results, and we can open discussion for each thing. For the first question, do we have any concerns about Zoom? 82% of folks said no, and the rest said there was no preference. So we're good to go on Zoom, which is great. For the second question, any concerns about the same time? Mornings, 9:30 to 12:30 with adjustments as needed. 91%, 20 out of 22 folks. So everyone that completed the poll, I think. 91% said no, no concerns. And the other 2 folks had no preference, which is great. And along the similar veins, for the third question, same frequency, last Wednesday of the month in January, April, July, or October. We've got 91% of folks said they don't have any concerns, and the other 2 folks said that there was no preference. Anything folks want to add to that? I'm going to stop sharing.
I'd like to find out what's going on with these undecided voters. If we could, they're really going to be important. There's some political humor there. Just kidding.
I mean, no preference for me says they're good with whatever. So yeah. I think it's okay. If they were to abstain, that's when I would.
Yeah, I'm just making a joke.
Oh, sorry. I'm off my game, y'all guys. Cool. Great. So I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I thought that might be your results. So I've actually already scheduled the Zoom meetings. So those will be going out. The registration links for those will be going out in the notes, and on the post on the website, all that good stuff. Any other? Oh, I meant to add this, but forgot. How are we doing on time? Okay. There should be a slide on this, but my brain didn't work yesterday, so it didn't come up. We really love having guest speakers. folks sharing about work that is of interest to you, that you're working on, that's STEWI, bioaccumulation related. So please reach out or unmute now. And if you have anything that you'd like to hear from us about, or you'd like us to find guest speakers for 2025 to discuss topics, we'd love to like compile a list of ideas. Do folks have any meeting guest speaker topic ideas that are top of mind, or something that you want to share with us next year that we can capture? Great. If something comes up, you know where to find us. Please let us know. And I'll probably bug you about it in January. On January, what's the date? 20 something. January 29th. I'll ask you this again. Okay, so we are gonna start to wrap. The January 29th meeting, 9:30 to 12:30, it'll be held over Zoom. We've already got a great agenda for that meeting. We'll give you a more thorough update on all of the reports that are on the way. Now that our data backlog is being caught up, we have a clearer view of when those reports should be coming. So Jay will tell us all about everything in his reporting heart. We'll also hopefully have more detail on the draft 2020 Lakes Panel 4 data report. We'll also have the interpretive report for 2015 through 2023 lakes, but just for the metals data. We're still waiting on organics, so we're doing it in parts. Part 1 will be metals, part 2 will come later when we have the organics. We hope to hear from OEHA on their fish advisory development priorities. Last year, they gave us a heads up I think during the October meeting, but because so much new data is coming in, we wanted to hold off so they could check that out before they share their priorities. I will be giving a more thorough update on where we are with the realignment. And Jay has already tentatively signed up for a Delta RMP Bass Mercury data extravaganza. And I think that's everything for January. And that
we had that other idea for a quick item on lessons learned from the sampling from 24.
Yeah. We can, yes, I will be sure to add that.
Cool.
Great. So for item 2, quick updates. If you have any ideas for stew-centric topics for the Water Quality Monitoring Council, please email those directly to Nick and he will coordinate. If you forget and you email them to Jay or I, we're not going to be mad at you. We'll find the right spot. For the Tribally Centered Training Series, we don't have any tribal representatives on the call today, but for those watching the recording, if you represent a tribe, you work for a tribe, you're part of a tribal environmental group, and you want to attend one of the trainings in December 2nd or December 10th, the registration is open and you are welcome. For everyone else, wait a couple days and the recording and the slides will be available, but the live interactive experience is for tribes only at this time. Anything else for quick updates in terms of action items that I might have missed? I think that's it. Okay. For the sampling and analysis update, Autumn and team are gonna keep rocking with the processing samples. Scott is already working on the cruise report. Y'all are going so much faster than I expected, which is just delightful. Thank you so much. And when that's ready to go, we'll work with our Moss Landing team to get that posted and shared through our STEW avenues. For the long-term monitoring plan, it is in my inbox and I have it on my list to review it, I promise. But for everyone else, think about ways to collaborate, funding ideas, whatever the idea is, let's think about ways that we can partner together to make our monies go further. And when that is, once I'm done reviewing it, we will post the final document on the website, and we'll send an email out to the stew notifying everyone that it's ready to go. For the final monitoring plan, Jay's gonna button that up. Everything save that table that we talked about. And Moss Landing, as we've heard, is already on the collection permit train, which is great. I'm going to prepare kickoff materials and distribute to key parties in early 2025. As we mentioned earlier, please review the sampling and analysis table. The locations were set on those. If you want to give us ideas for future monitoring, we welcome those, but we're not going to be adding any other locations for permitting reasons. But we want to hear from you on analytes and species in that table that Jay shared. And please email that to Jay by November 15th so we can wrap that up and get going. Meeting dates. The Zoom meetings are already scheduled because we know each other. The community is great. I read your minds. Those will be posted online before the notes go out. And once they're up and in the notes, folks can register. I did just like this year. It's a recurring meeting, so you can register once for all 4 meetings. So you don't have to register 4 times unless that's what your heart desires, in which case live your best life. But you can register once, and then in your email confirmation, there are instructions on how to download a calendar hold. So you'll have to do that yourselves, but it's all possible. And if you have any future topic or speaker recommendations, we'd love to hear from you. Shoot me an email. If you work for the water boards or our sister agencies, send me a Teams chat. And I think, yeah, so I'm going to process this recording as soon as we end the call. I'll get the recording and the slides out as soon as possible. The notes will take a little bit longer, maybe in a week or 2. But those will be out as soon as possible as well. And everything will be posted on the meetings page. Did I miss any action items that people heard that I didn't foresee when I wrote these slides 3 weeks ago?
Your crystal ball was very good, as usual.
I'm wiping it, keeping that baby clean. All right. Okay, great. Happy 2024. Thanks for hanging with us today and for all of the stew meetings. Hopefully it's a space you enjoy coming to and getting really. We'll see you all in January, and emails with updates will come out before that. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks again, Rich.
Yes, congratulations, Rich.
Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you.